number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Patrick Christiano, your host, the publisher of TheaterLife.com, a website for theater buffs covering everything theater. And I am coming to you from the LTV studio in Wainscott, where I have a special guest. I always have a special guest. This time it's an artist who happens to be in the permanent collection of the Parish and Guildhall, Eric Dever. Eric, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you, Patrick. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be back and to see you. Here we are.
And this is one of Eric's most recent paintings. In fact, he told me the paint is still a little bit wet as he brought it into the studio today. So what's it called?
The title of this work is Star Magnolia, and it's 48 by 36 inches on linen and executed in oil.
It's gorgeous.
No,
it's absolutely beautiful. This is the most recent thing you've done.
Actually, I completed it last week, and it just needs to be signed at the top on the reverse.
Where do you sign a painting like this?
Usually on the top and the reverse, and it's sort of a contemporary practice to signature on the back.
It's fabulous. I love it. I really do. But now you have been really busy for the past even year. During the whole pandemic, you kind of painted yourself out of it. Is that not correct? Or painted yourself into it, which
it's true. There are certain things that happen for me regardless, and but it has to do with season. Much of my work tracks the season and the progression of, beginning with the progression of spring. And that's something that I develop month by month, and then we transition into summer. And then often I paint a fall painting, and winter I work on everything else. So
this is something you've always done. It's kind of like a process of yours always.
I'm tuned into the seasons. I think it grounds me into the earth.
Oh wow!
And sort of cosmically, spring really is a cosmic event. It's not that spring happens. We sort of arrive at spring, and just because of the rotation of an orbit of the Earth, and something I look forward to. For me personally, spring is my personal New Year, but that's something shared by many.
So you're really flying right now then too, especially we've got our vaccines, and and Dr. Fauci says we're safe if we've been vaccinated. We're out in the world. So let's go back to back in May. There was a drive-by pop-up art. No, drive-by art exhibition is what it was.
Yes, and that.
Let's have the image of there was a photographer from the Times that came and took your photograph.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
Is this the photograph? This is this here.
This one here. This was last May.
Yeah, last May.
In 2020, and it was kind of surprising. You know, often people find the New York Times on their front porch. I found a photographer from the New York Times who wanted to take some pictures for a story that Stacey Stowe was writing. The photographer happens to be Brian Derbala.
You could take the picture down.
And who's a men's fashion photographer, which was a big surprise. I found out later. But the drive-by event was organized by this fellow named Warren Needich, and he organized this from Los Angeles and then came here and pulled together a number of East End artists. And the idea was that in the middle of the pandemic, particularly the frightening beginning, people could at least get into their cars and drive around Long Island or Eastern Long Island and see some art. And it was sort of a new concept of exhibiting, because museums were shut down, galleries were shut down, everyone was isolated, people were afraid to mix in public, and this was really I think a brilliant opportunity for artists and public, just something to do. And so I installed what I was working on, paintings that track spring, and I attached them to tomato stakes.
Oh, wow. Very inventive.
Yeah, well, I was saving them to plant tomatoes, but I thought, well,
it's better for art.
It's good for art, and it kind of made a nice installation across the front yard of my studio, and people could drive up and look at them. And
so this picture is taken really in the front of you.
Exactly.
Let's show it one more time. I think it's a dynamite picture.
It was fun.
Can we have that image one more time? No. Okay, well, I guess we can't get that back.
Well,
oh, there it is. It is
there
back.
we are.
I love. Do we have some of these images too?
I believe the largest one in the center is the next image.
Okay, let's have it.
Oh, great.
This is your spring, part of your spring.
This one, I believe the title is, could be May 24th, it might be, or it might be, I titled them after the dates, but this painting was some...
so you title your paintings after the date you do them and not out of any kind of emotional response?
Sometimes. I track spring. It's how I gauge the plants and sometimes it changes each year. But this painting had to do with the maple tree canopy blooming, and what surprised me, and I had really never noticed before, but there is red in the spring buds of the maple tree, and they're just about as red as you might see in fall as well. And so that was one of the things about the pandemic. It had me personally looking more closely at my own personal environment, my own property, my walks that I would take.
So you never, I mean, this red that you saw in the maple tree, you never saw it before?
I never noticed it until...
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And that's one of the things that happened, was just becoming a little more micro, and the tree canopy, as a consequence, has become really one of my continuing interests that sort of grew out of that time and in this area.
So what's the next image we have?
Oh, okay. This one, well, this occurred, I worked on this a little bit later, and it's around July 16th that some daylilies around my studio start to emerge, and I like to try to do something with them because I like the yellow so much, and the orange as well. The orange is sort of ubiquitous here because we see a lot of them, but the combination of the two for me, with some of the green, are especially evocative of summer, and I look forward to them every year blooming. They're almost like friends that come back.
It's true.
As long as they still live, but it's like that. And particularly during this last year, gardens become important, terrariums become important, houseplants become important. These are all living things, and they offer us nourishment as well.
Yeah, I can't live without flowers. They make me smile. I like to see them in my environment. I always try to bring them in as much as possible. So
this is beautiful.
Yeah. So what, we have more images of? Are there more images from the drive-by?
Oh no, this isn't drive-by, but this is an image from spring. It's a little bit before the daylilies come, but this is when a cherry tree next to my studio blossoms, and I try to paint this one with some regularity, but it's only the window this year is past. Now, those paintings were in a pop-up art exhibit that Barry Campbell, which
you're represented by Barry Campbell on 24th Street in the city.
Yes.
And they did a pop-up exhibition out here.
it was brilliant.
It was a very smart idea.
It really was, because many of their clients had decamped from the city to here, to Eastern Long Island, and it was a nice chance to reconnect with clients, friends, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me to have work that hadn't been exhibited, that we were waiting to present. New York City was big.
How did it come about that they decided? I mean, like obviously you said because the buyers are out here, the market for a lot of them are out here. It was a good motivation, but how did it come about? What made them? What was the thing that clicked that made them?
That's a very good question, because part of it was Barry Campbell's thrust. A lot of the gallery inventory, they represent many of the artists associated with abstract expressionism, and of course, the East End of Long Island and 10th Street or 9th Street in New York, this region is ground zero for that movement. And so for them to return, to go to Ashwag Hall and to bring their...
We forgot to tell them it was Ashwag Hall.
Oh, okay.
It was at Ashwag Hall, this pop-up exhibition that they did.
It was a very good idea, because there's this sense, and they titled the exhibit Continuum, and because a number of their artists, myself included, are working out of that tradition, certainly making work that is an outgrowth of the New York school and some of the techniques and as well. And so it was really, it was like coming home in some way for them to bring to even have the show there. So we were very happy about it. And they'll be back this year as well.
And did you sell work out of it?
We did well.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
That was really nice.
I mean, because that's the whole point, ultimately, right?
Well, it's part of it. I think it certainly keeps the lights on, but for everybody. But it's really introducing the artist to the community, and to maybe reintroducing them, and introducing people to Barry Campbell and what it is that they do, and their roster of estates as well. And so I think it was win-win for everyone, and they'll be doing it again once this summer and again in October.
Or do you know the dates by any chance?
I don't. I do know that I'll be participating in another exhibit with them out here probably in October, something like that.
Will they be doing it at Ashwag Hall again?
Yes, it'll be Ashwag Hall.
So there are going to be two more pop-up exhibitions that they're going to do at Ashwag Hall of people that they represent.
Yes.
How cool.
And another one this summer as well.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. That's very exciting.
Nice.
So when you were painting these pictures that were in the pop-up, you didn't know where they were going to be. At the time you were actually putting the paint on the canvases, you didn't know when they might be shown or where they might be shown.
I had no idea. It was a pop-up for me personally. I just had no idea. But painting is a way that I negotiate my life or where I am in the world, and this is something.
What do you mean by that?
It helps me to process what's happening around me, and
process. It helps you process because you get out of your head, or
well, it has to do with really my optic brain and sensory memory. It's how I take the world in and make something of it. And so even if we're in a dark period or a difficult time, it certainly can affect the palette. For instance, towards the end of the pandemic, the paintings that we've just shown earlier at the beginning were my usual exuberant, very bright colors. But more recently, I'm afraid I'm one of those people that succumbed to some of the anxiety of the tail end of the pandemic, and my palette has become a little bit more subdued. And this is the kind of work that I'm focusing a little bit more on right now, is paintings with a little bit less colorful. Maybe there's a lot of color in this, but certainly more subtle.
Is this kind of like a transition back to, in a way, that you came from? I mean,
not really, because I pretty much in the past I've been full blast color, and with not too much of a white tint. I kept it pretty bright. The hues were always very strong, and but I think there's a sort of a reckoning with this is something we can't ignore. What has happened?
no, we can't.
We're processing.
I think we've all been changed by what has happened,
Yes.
and I think if you had, it can be a positive effect.
Yeah.
And I think a very positive effect it can be if you do it that way. But what I really want to talk about is what happened to you. You also went to the Warhol Montauk project. You were invited to participate, and you went out to Montauk in September of 2020 until March, and painted your little butt off.
Well, yeah, that was really a wonderful opportunity and relief. I think it's a great opportunity.
It's a great honor too.
At any time.
But an honor too, a real honor.
Thank you. But the way that it worked out, I found out at the beginning of 2020 that I was awarded the Warhol Montauk project. But I was unable to go to the site because of some COVID restrictions, and so I wasn't able to go there until really the tail end of the year, which was in the fall. And it was actually September, so it was really before the technical end of summer. It was past Labor Day, but it was still summer for a few weeks, and that's when I began. And I don't know if we have any.
Yeah, we have some images, yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It will show you the scope of the whole thing.
Okay. These are all the images, or just some, how many, or just a lot of them?
There's a few more. There's 18.
And you actually did these at the Warhol?
No, I didn't. I spent time there, but the work that I do is in my studio.
So let's have that image, let's have them again. Can we have that back, please? Because it resonates from the, I mean, you feel.
Oh, that's a high compliment.
You feel the place. I can feel it.
You could see on the floor and the wall, some of it looks like the painting is growing or expanding, the painting itself. But the grouping of 8 paintings are really from Amsterdam Beach. That is that area directly under the Warhol estate.
So those are the 8 on the right-hand side?
Yes. And they trace and track various aspects of the terrain through the moorlands, down a path, down to the beach. Reflections and tidal pools became a very important device for me, because and then finally at the end, the bottom figure of the 8, there's no sky in that picture, because the sky, I reflected entirely in the tidal pool.
Oh, wow.
And it was and that's become a hallmark of my work at this point, is the sky in the sea or in the foreground. And it's also formally a good excuse to bring some blue down into the sort of the earth tones at the base. And then the other work is the 6. At a certain point, I finished up at the Amsterdam Beach site, and I stopped by the lighthouse in Montauk, and I spent some time there. I did do a painting about that experience, but then I found this brochure at the lighthouse called the Explorers Club, and it was written in the 1950s, but it had a list of all these places to visit, and if you go to, that was for teenagers, if you go to them, these places, you can be an explorer. And so, well, I thought, I've got time on my hands. I'm going to visit these places. And interestingly, most of them were sacred Montaukett sites.
Oh, wow.
And one could reach them by by trail.
Oh, that's really fascinating.
And so that's where the part of my focus went.
Did that you get an energy lift from it too?
I did.
I mean, could you feel it?
I did. It changed how I really think about Long Island. And I think this could be true anywhere, but we are living on the Montaukets' land, or their history, and of course, yes, they are combined at some point, but the land, I particularly that area, I just feel a great deal of reverence and awe, and I try to imagine what it might like to live there. There's a view of Scallop Pond off to the side where one could really live fairly well off of shellfish and striped bass, and then there's some freshwater ponds, and it's so high up you really can see almost 360 degrees all around you, and so I just kept that in mind, and I tried to do some reading about the area as well, and
you seem almost like you're a bit altered by the experience.
A little.
I mean, as you're sharing with me, I hear that.
That's
Did you feel it?
Well, there's some of their belief system has to do with the oneness of all things, and spending time at Council Rock, which is also a cemetery for the Montaukets. And mind you, the Shinnecocks, their territory is west of Bridgehampton or thereabout. But when I was sitting there at Council Rock and looking out, as it was becoming twilight, I could see the lights going on, car lights, and some lights from the town and all around. But it really was the view of the sky, this large crystal rock, the view of the sky, the scallops in the sky, the twilight, that was the story. And it seemed that the history of colonial peoples to the present seemed really minor in relationship to the splendor of
the universe.
Exactly. It was humbling. And particularly during the pandemic as well. It sort of made me think about this is just one point on a long line, and
we're specks.
Exactly. It was humbling, and so I have great respect for the beliefs of the First Nation Indigenous people.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that, because I think it's really cool.
That was a big surprise for me. I knew very little about the Montaukett people, and although I know some contemporary
I didn't know as
people,
much as you just shared. Some of it's all eye-opening to me.
It's fascinating, and there are people that are part of that's their heritage, and they're living here. They're here. Anyway.
So we have a couple images, I think. More, do we not?
Oh, I think we have a close-up of one.
Oh, we have.
Oh, yes. Okay.
This is from.
This one's from Amsterdam Beach,
right.
And this is the first one. And one of the.
I love this one.
Oh, thank you. You picked it too. Thank you. It's a good pick. It's towards the end of the day, and the title of the painting. These are all 30 by 36 inches. This one's on linen, and the title of it is The Gloaming. And the Gloaming,
I love the title too.
Interesting. Well, I didn't really know. I wasn't born here, and so but I read about the Gloaming from somebody else who wasn't born here but has come to live here as I have. But I learned about it from Joan Didion in one of her memoirs of grief. This one was titled Blue Nights, and she spoke about the period that we're just beginning to approach between the beginning of summer and the end of summer. It's this time when twilight is very blue, almost like your shirt, very blue, and it lasts longer. And it only happens in northern latitudes, and the French refer to it as l'air bleu, and the English the gloaming. I think the Irish maybe blue night or blue charm, maybe, and I'm sure it occurs in Asia as well, but I don't know. I'm not savvy enough linguistically to know what they call it, and but I've put those into my into these paintings, and it's a little bit of a literary reference.
I love Joan Didion myself. That was the last picture, I think. We don't have any more, except for we have a copy.
There's a watercolor.
Oh, yes, I remember. Yes.
Yeah,
yes. I love this too.
Oh, thank you. This is kind of a fluke, and
why do you call it a fluke?
well, in the middle of the pandemic, when we're really possibly, there's a couple of approaches: do nothing or become manic. And in my case, I was scraping the barrel of everything, and I came across a collection of paper and ink that was gifted to me by Jim McMullen, who was the artist who painted over 80 theater posters for Lincoln Center Theater.
Oh, how cool!
And he was moving back to the city after living here many years with his wife, and they were moving back to the city, and he had some extra art supplies, which I was
You have to wrap it up. We have a minute.
Yeah, so happy to accept. And so I began using some of the white crayons and in white. I couldn't see what I was doing, but then I did many, but then I would use his inks and create monochromatic washes, and they would just kind of come alive. So it was fun. It was like magic or invisible. And so I did Coney Island, Sag Harbor, some beaches, Washington Square, and I'll probably do some more. And the group of that work's called The Last Day of Summer.
Oh, you're like a kid playing.
I was. I played.
I
And it
love
went
it.
very quickly, too. And that's important.
But the works, the results are just fabulous. It's not like a kid's playing work.
Well,
what we get.
a couple of them are pretty free, but the Coney Island ones are some of them are a little bit wacky, but they should be. It's Coney Island.
We have 15 seconds. You're going to have to come back.
Oh,
And
Patrick,
when
thank you.
we have the pop-up or something, you'll have to come
Oh,
back
I'd love
and share
to.
more with you. Eric,
Oh,
it's
thank
been
you.
so much fun chatting with you.
Thank you.
I love your work, especially.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.